a husband's agreement to his wife's infidelity. Flo and I have been together for 9 years, the last 7 as husband and wife. Flo is a beautiful blonde, 6 feet tall and 135 pounds. She has been the love of my life from the moment I laid eyes on her in college. Neither of us had much lovemaking experience before we met, but over the years we learned to give each other great pleasure. The event I'm writing about happened 5 years ago. At the time, Flo and I were saving every penny to buy a house. That year I told Flo that we would not be able to buy each other gifts for Christmas. The previous Christmases we had been very extravagant in our gifts, so Flo was very disappointed, but not because she needed things, but because she really enjoyed giving me presents. I liked giving her presents too. We kept reminding ourselves that our new home would be our gift. One evening, just before Christmas, Flo was waiting for me at the door when I came home from work. She said she had an idea, gleaned from a TV program she had watched during the day, about how we could give each other Christmas presents without spending any money. The idea was very simple. We would each write on separate cards 52 things we would do for our soulmate, like get a massage, or do some household project of our spouse's choice, etc. We would then put the gift cards in envelopes and place them in a box. At Christmas, we would exchange the boxes. After that, each week starting in the new year, we would pull out one envelope each week, and whatever was on the card would be our gift for that week. That way, we could give each other gifts for Christmas that would last all year and cost us nothing. At first, I wasn't as excited about the idea as Flo was, but it was something that would make her happy if I agreed. I figured 52 gift ideas wouldn't be hard, so that same evening I sat down at the table with a stack of 3x5 cards and got started. 3 days later, on Christmas Eve, I finished the last card. The first day I came up with the simplest ideas, like giving her a foot or back massage. It helped that I decided I didn't need 52 different gift ideas, that gifts like massages are good any time of year, so I added a lot of those. But I also included things like planting a flower bed, washing and cleaning her car, cooking dinner for a week, cleaning the kitchen for a week, doing laundry, and so on. Every time I came up with something original that I could give her, it made me feel good. Each time I started liking the idea more and more. At Christmas, we exchanged boxes, and I realized I had missed a bit. I put Flo's envelopes in a shoebox and gift-wrapped it. Flo found an old toy chest at a garage sale, cleaned it out, painted it, and put my envelopes inside. Flo didn't seem to mind that I didn't think too carefully about the packaging, but I felt bad. I should have done better. Afterward, we discussed how we would exchange our weekly gifts. We decided that we would each pull out an envelope on Friday night after dinner or before bed if we were going out in the evening. It would then be decided when to deliver the gift. One-day projects done over the weekend and gifts like massages were given at the recipient's request. Week-long gifts, like my cooking for the week, would start on Sunday and end the following Saturday. Then we started another Christmas tradition. We made love under the Christmas tree. It was slow and gentle. When we started the gift giving in January, it became apparent that we were going to have to make some adjustments to our plans. The first gift Flo pulled out of the box was that I was to plant a flower garden. Since it was the first week of January, I couldn't plant the garden at that time, so we decided that if for some reason the gift couldn't be delivered during the week it was drawn, the recipient would keep the gift card and pick it up as soon as possible. We made more and more adjustments as we went along. I looked forward to Friday night when I could draw my gift. That year was quite eventful for us. We moved into a new house in April. I got a promotion at work in June that allowed me to earn a higher salary. And Flo, having completed her master's program at the university, got a teaching position in September. So by Christmas, we were in a much better financial position than the year before and were able to buy each other Christmas presents again, so we no longer needed the weekly gift box. That year, I enjoyed buying gifts for Flo. I bought her CDs she wanted, clothes, some ski gear, and even underwear. About a week before Christmas, I saw an antique cookie tin from the late 1800s. I bought it for Flo, figuring she would use it to decorate the house. When I got home with the tin, the idea hit me to give her a full gift envelope. I pulled out my 3x5 cards again and started writing gift envelopes. This time, it was easier for me to come up with ideas. Our experience over the past year helped, and having money allowed me to include gifts like a romantic weekend for two at the coast or dinner at a restaurant of her choice. And I put in the envelope that Flo could send me to the store of her choice to buy her lingerie. It was obvious by the number of gifts under the tree that we had overdone it that year, but when we exchanged gifts on Christmas morning, I couldn't wait for Flo to open my cookie jar. I don't know why, but I was more excited about handing her the weekly gift jar than I was about all the other gifts I had bought. Up until the last minute, I managed to keep Flo from opening the cookie tin. When she saw the old tin, she was delighted. When she opened it and saw the gift cards inside, she started laughing and tears ran down her cheeks. Then she looked at me and said, "I love you," as she handed me the last package under the Christmas tree. Imagine my shock when, upon opening the package, I discovered the very same toy treasure chest filled with gift cards. In an instant, the only important gifts under the Christmas tree were the last two. We both laughed and cried, and soon we found ourselves with no clothes under the Christmas tree. During this session, we spent a good 10 minutes pleasuring each other. Later, sitting on the floor, we discussed our weekly gifts again. We decided that this year, any gift card you pull out of your box could be kept until you wanted to pick it up. As the year progressed, I found that Flo really started to open up more in the gifts she gave me. Some of her gifts were sexual in nature. She had cards like, "I'll have sex with you in the kitchen," or "We'll have sex on the landing." There was even one that said she'd have sex in the back seat of a car. When I pulled out these cards, Flo said she didn't want to talk about them. She asked that when I wanted to make a collection, I just show her the card. At first, I thought that meant her heart wouldn't be involved. But I was wrong. She may not have wanted to discuss the gifts, but she really enjoyed giving them. The most interesting gift she put in the box that year was a card that said she would have sex with me as often and wherever I wanted throughout the weekend. I saved that card until she wanted a romantic weekend at the coast. When I told her I wanted weekend sex during our weekend at the coast, she handed me her lingerie card and a card for dinner at a restaurant of her choice. Combining all of these gifts into one weekend, we enjoyed our vacation immensely. Needless to say, we enjoyed our weekly gifts and our sex life was getting hotter and hotter. When we started preparing for next Christmas, we both knew we would have weekly gift boxes again. This time, we discussed them in advance. I suggested that this year we both put more explicit gifts in the boxes, and Flo agreed. But she said that from now on, when we draw our gift, we won't show each other what we drew. That way, we won't know what we have to do until our mate comes to get his gift. I agreed. A few days later, I was taking out the trash, and as I was pulling a bag out of one garbage can, a crumpled 3x5 card fell to the ground. I picked up the card, opened it, and read, "You have chosen the time and place, and I will have sex with you." The last few words were blurred, and it looked like Flo's pen had run out of ink. On Christmas Eve, as I was getting ready to wrap the cookie jar, I counted the gift envelopes one last time and discovered I only had 51. I had to come up with another card. I thought about another sex card, but decided that was silly. As I sat there thinking about my beautiful wife, how much time we've spent together and how much I love her, an idea hit me. I knew it had to be the right idea because I got really excited just thinking about it. I sat down and started writing. I went through about 20 cards before I finally got what I wanted. I wrote, "Your gift is that I give you permission to have sex with the man of your choice, only you can't choose me. This will take the form of a game. The game will begin as soon as you read this card and will end on New Year's Eve at midnight." The goal of the game is for you to set a goal, develop a strategy to achieve it, and successfully accomplish it in the time you have between the time you receive this card and the end of the year. Given that you can only get this card through a weekly random drawing, it could take you anywhere from 12 months to 1 week to reach your goal. Now for the rules. 1. Anyone you choose as a target is eligible if they meet the following criteria. The target you have chosen must not live in our neighborhood, must not get us into legal trouble. All goal activities must take place within 20 miles of home. You must be able to prove that you have successfully met your goal. 2. You may not discuss this game or your goal with anyone else. 3. Once you accept the challenge, you cannot quit the game. 4. My goal in this game is to prevent you from reaching your goal. Your advantage in this game is that I will not know when you draw that card. You must use this element of the game to your best advantage. You will only have one chance to get out of the game, and that will be the day you get this card. Prize. If you win, you get to choose one prize. The prize can be anything you wish, as long as it is within my power to give it to you. However, if you lose, you will have to participate in 5 amateur dance contests over a 3-month period. I will choose the time and place of these contests myself. Flo, I love you very much, and I want you to know that no matter what you choose as your goal, and no matter if you succeed in your goal, I will still love you and forgive you for anything you do in trying to win this game. Remember, if you lose in this game, you will be humiliated in the form of strip contests. So you must make sure that your goal is exciting for you and will cause humiliation for me if you succeed. I look forward to the challenge. As I sealed the card in the envelope, I began to worry that Flo would not only not play the game, but would be very angry that I had suggested it at all. I dropped the envelope into a cookie jar and wrapped it in gift wrap. At Christmas, when we were exchanging gifts, I told Flo that this year, once she got the envelope out of the tin, she would have to open it and write the date on the back of the card. I said the reason for this would become apparent later. The new year started well. It was only January 8th, and when I walked into the house after work, Flo was in the kitchen and had just put dinner in the oven. Flo must have gotten home a little earlier than me because she hadn't yet changed into the dress she wore to work. Flo looked at me with a strange expression in her eyes, said come in for a minute, and headed for our bedroom. When I entered the room, she was pulling back the bedspread. Then she looked at me, blushed slightly, and said, "I've been thinking about this all day," and handed me one of the 2 gift cards she had gotten this year. This card was for sex. While I was looking at Flo, she was taking off her pantyhose. As soon as she took them off, she climbed onto the bed. I walked over to the bed and kissed Flo and had sex with her, and then she thanked me for the wonderful gift. While Flo cleaned herself up and went back to the kitchen, I went to my office, pulled out the gift list, and crossed off one of the gifts. There were 4 of them left. She had only gotten 2 gifts, and one of them I now knew. I didn't think she still had the game card, but I couldn't be sure. Over the next few months, things at work went downhill. We had a new boss, who for some reason immediately disliked me. I think the problem was that he was younger than me and didn't fully understand the nature of our work. I was in charge of the department, and everyone came to me with problems. And when Jason, the new boss, told someone what to do, they always came to check with me. Jason started trying to discredit me and make me look like a fool every chance he got. I started hearing talk that Jason was going to move me to a lower position and put someone else in charge. I didn't know if it was true, but I tried not to do anything at work that would piss him off and give him an excuse to push me out. While all this was going on, every night when I got home, I complained to Flo about work. She tried to calm me down and keep me from getting confused. After all, they are just work neighbors. One evening, Flo said you really need to do something to relieve stress. I replied that you were right and pulled out my gift card. It was an important occasion. Over the next few months, the situation at work stabilized. Jason and I more or less came to a truce. He realized that he needed me to do my job right, and I needed my job done right. He started treating me easier, but he still tried to make me look bad at every opportunity. I learned to live with it. It was now May, and Flo had drawn 14 of her gift cards, using 11 of them, including 2 more sex sessions. Thus, I had 11 gift cards in my account to date. There was nothing in Flo's behavior to indicate that she had already received a game card. Another 2 weeks passed, and on Friday night of that week, as was customary among the guys I worked with, we planned to go in for a drink after work. On these occasions, our wives or girlfriends would meet us at the bar, and then we could go out to dinner or something. On this Friday night, Flo joined us at the bar. Unexpectedly, Jason and his wife showed up that evening. He made the rounds, introducing his wife to everyone. When he got to me, he admonished his wife that I was his problem child. Then, as he left the table, he said, "Don't drink on the weekend, I need you awake next week." I felt like jumping up and punching him, and when he left, Flo said, "What an asshole!" That made me feel better. On the way home, Flo asked me if Jason had always acted this way toward me. I replied that not always, but most of the time. Then she said, "You should quit." I replied that I had thought about it, and that was the end of the conversation. The following Friday, after we exchanged gift cards as usual, Flo, after putting the date on her card, slipped away to her office to look at it. Flo was very quiet the rest of the evening, and all day Saturday as well. But Saturday evening we made love, and Flo seemed unusually aroused even before we started. I concluded that she had gotten the game card and had decided to accept the challenge. I realized that from the next day on, I would have to watch Flo very closely if I wanted to prevent her from achieving her goal. Over the next few weeks, I didn't notice anything unusual in Flo's behavior. She didn't go out alone at night. There were no strange phone calls when we walked together. I didn't notice her looking at or talking to other men. As a matter of fact, it wasn't until September that Flo did anything that I would have considered even slightly suspicious. One evening, she was a couple hours late from work and was carrying several shopping bags as she walked into the house. Usually when Flo went shopping, she would show me what she had bought, but this time she went straight upstairs. In the evening, when Flo fell asleep, I looked in her closet to find what she had bought, but found nothing. The next day, I managed to get home from work before Flo did, and I searched the stairs for shopping bags. I was about to give up when I looked in a small cubbyhole in the attic and found 2 bags. Pulling out the bags, I found that one was from Victoria's Secret and contained a very attractive set of black satin bra and panties, and in the other bag, to my surprise, was a red-headed wig. The wig looked to be of very high quality, but I had never known Flo to wear a wig, so this really puzzled me. I carefully put the things back where they belonged and went downstairs. I decided I didn't want Flo to find out what I knew about the underwear and the wig, and that was to my advantage. The fact that she hid them said that they must be part of her game strategy. I started checking the 2 bags in the attic daily to make sure they were still there. I also checked them whenever Flo left the house when I was home. No matter how hard I tried to find out what Flo was doing, I was unsuccessful. It was the end of October and nothing was happening. And then on Halloween Day, as I was walking back to my office after another beating from that asshole Jason, I saw the message light on my phone flash. It was a short 1-line message from Flo. It said, "Catch me if you can." I felt panic overwhelm me. My legs went weak and my stomach started doing somersaults. I began to regret this wonderful idea of mine. I closed my desk and headed home as fast as I could, but when I got to the house, Flo was gone. I ran to the attic and was surprised and temporarily relieved to find the 2 shopping bags still lying where they had been for the past month and a half. I guessed that Flo hadn't counted on me getting home before she did when she left her message, so I took the 2 bags and hid them. Then I went downstairs to wait for her to get home. I figured her whole plan would fall apart when she couldn't find the wig or underwear where she left them. I have to admit, I felt smug. About half an hour later, the phone rang. It was June, the wife of one of my friends at work. She said she was calling to ask what Flo was going to wear to the Halloween party tonight. I asked what party, and June said the party at Gary Carlson's house. Gary is the president of our company. I was in a panic. The president of the company is throwing a party and I wasn't invited. Could this be Jason's doing? I said to June, I don't know anything about the party tonight. Flo and I didn't get an invitation. June replied, Stop joking around. Flo and I have been talking about this party for the last 2 weeks. She just didn't tell me what she was going to wear. I told June, I don't know where Flo is right now, but I'll have her call you if we have time before we leave for the party. I then hung up the phone. My thoughts began to dart around. Was Flo planning to go to this party without me? And was it so that she could accomplish her goal and win the game? Then it occurred to me that if she had planned to go to the party without me, she probably wasn't going to come home first. She wouldn't want me to see her getting ready for a Halloween party that I didn't know about. That would make me suspicious. And then it hit me. Either she knew I'd found the wig and underwear, or it was a decoy. I started to panic again. I needed to find a costume to wear to the party in the next half hour and get there before Flo could realize all her plans. While I was running around the house trying to come up with an idea for a costume, I realized who Flo's target was. Gary, the president of the company and the host of tonight's party. Gary was divorced, and I'd seen him flirting with Flo at other social gatherings. I guessed she knew it would be easy to get him into bed in his own home. I was beginning to despair. I had to find a costume right away, or I wouldn't be able to get to the party in time to stop Flo. I was beginning to feel like all was lost. I wandered around the house looking for the costume, but I wasn't thinking about it. My thoughts were centered on the idea of Flo making love to Gary. As I continued to think about Flo having sex with Gary, I realized that I was getting aroused by the images emerging in my head. Suddenly, I wanted to be there and see it happen, if at all possible. This brought me back to the original problem. What could I wear? Looking in my closet, I saw the bag with the red wig again, tucked away in the corner where I had hidden it. I decided it was the only way to leave without being recognized. I took a quick shower and shaved as thoroughly as I could. I wasn't going to shave my legs, so I put on one of Flo's tracksuits. I had to wear my gym shoes, but when I put the wig on, the effect was amazing. I almost didn't recognize myself. I applied some of Flo's makeup to better hide the mustache shadows, and then put on Flo's sunglasses. I can't say I made a beautiful woman, but at a party full of drunks, I could probably walk by and at least no one would recognize me. Looking at myself in the mirror, I realized something was missing. I finally realized it. No breasts. I found one of Flo's bras in her dresser and stuffed it with socks. It didn't help at all. My breasts were like lumpy mashed potatoes. I found a couple balloons in the junk drawer and inflated them to be as close to the same size as possible. The effect of the balloons was perfect. I now looked like a woman. Don't get me wrong, I didn't like dressing up as a woman, but I needed a costume that I wouldn't be recognized in, and this option was perfect. Luckily, the car was in the garage, so I didn't have to risk being seen by the neighbors when I got in the car. The drive to Gary's house only took 20 minutes, but it seemed like an eternity to me. When I rang the doorbell, a woman dressed as a French maid opened the door. I couldn't tell if she was a guest or an employee of the restaurant. She invited me in, I thanked her in a whisper, and told her I had laryngitis. As I entered, I noticed that many of the guests were dressed in very elaborate costumes. There were space aliens, vampires, cowboys, and Indians. As I headed to the bar to get a drink to calm my nerves, I noticed a few of the guests looking at me. At first, I thought they must have recognized me, but then it came to me that they just mistook me for a woman who decided to dress in sweatpants and sunglasses. They didn't know how good my costume was. Walking over to the bar, I quickly drank a gin and tonic and grabbed a second one. Sipping the second drink, I started looking for Flo. The problem was that amongst all the wonderful costumes, I couldn't figure out which of the freaks, aliens, or chumps was Flo, or if she was even at the party. Unable to find Flo, I started looking for Gary. I had no luck until a man in a Long Ranger costume came up to the French maid and said, "Mr. Carlson, we're out of Merlot. Do you have any more?" After that, I watched Gary's every move. It wasn't until an hour later that Gary seemed to take a particular interest in one of his guests. The person was dressed like a gangster, in a double-breasted black pinstripe suit, and he was holding a violin case. I realized it was a woman by the way her breasts were raised, indicating a very large breast size under the jacket, and also by the fact that a bit of blonde hair was sticking out from under the black wig she was wearing. Although I couldn't recognize the face, since she was wearing makeup and sunglasses, the body size was appropriate. I found Flo. I decided to have a little fun and went over to say hi to Gary to see the look on Flo's face and see if he would recognize me. When Gary said hello to me, I mimed laryngitis and neither of them seemed to guess who I was. Gary asked me for a clue as to who I was. I told him he'd have to wait until late, and I went to the bar. After that, I kept my eyes on the two of them. Around 10:30, Gary and Flo went upstairs. Gary cast a quick glance around to make sure no one was watching them, and then they disappeared up the stairs. I waited a minute and followed them. When I got to the top of the stairs, Gary and Flo were gone. I walked down the hallway, which had 2 doors on each side and one at the end of the hallway. As I walked down the hallway, I listened at each door for voices. At the second door, I heard someone inside. I decided to just walk in and pretend I was lost. When I swung the door open, I looked into the guest bathroom, and there was a young woman sitting on the toilet flushing the water. I said in a hoarse whisper, "Oh, I'm sorry." She replied, "That's okay. I'm done anyway." She then stood up, giving me a 3-second view of her body while she dressed. Walking past me, she said, "It's all yours, honey." I closed the door behind her and waited until I heard her go up the stairs and back down the hall. At the next door, I wasn't sure if I had heard something or not, so I slowly opened the door. I peeked into the bedroom where Gary and his gangster were lying on the bed. When he heard me enter the room, he gave me a quick look over his shoulder and then went back to his occupation. Gary ignored my presence in the room, stood up, took off his pants and jockey shorts, and sat down on the bed and began rubbing himself against Flo's body. I was going to have a hard time staying a woman for the rest of the evening. When Gary finally started to remove Flo's clothes, the first thing I noticed was that Flo had shaved off almost all of her body hair. This bothered me because she knew I liked her hair, and I told her never to shave it off, and she replied that she never would. The next shock to me was when I saw the butterfly tattoo on her upper thigh. At first, I couldn't believe Flo could do such a thing, but then I realized she hadn't. It wasn't Flo. I stood there feeling stupid, horny, relieved, disappointed, and confused, but enjoying the scene of Gary and his gangster having what turned out to be very pleasurable sex with each other. I froze in place until I heard Gary's voice. At first, I couldn't hear what he said, and I had to ask him to repeat himself, and I had almost forgotten to disguise my voice. Gary repeated, "Why don't you get naked and bring your beautiful body here to share it with us?" I almost gasped. I quickly turned and walked out of the room. I was afraid Gary might follow me into the hallway, so I quickly slipped into the bedroom across the hall and hid behind a 3-panel screen in the corner. I sat there trying to decide what to do next, whether I should go back down the stairs and look for Flo or just leave. After all, I couldn't be sure she had come to the party. Either way, I knew that if she wasn't with Gary, she wasn't having sex with anyone here. Everyone in the office knew that Gary didn't mind sneaking out for a little sex at one of his parties, but he didn't tolerate that kind of behavior from others. I had heard that a few years ago he had caught a couple having sex in one of the bedrooms and fired the guy. That was the thought that crossed my mind when I heard the door open and saw 2 shadowy figures moving around the room. When they closed the door, I could no longer see anything. I heard them bumping into the bed, then giggling sounded, They turned the bedside lamp onto its lowest setting. There was enough light for me to make out them on the bed, but I couldn't make out who they were. For the first few minutes, they only kissed, and then they started taking off their clothes as fast as they could. Once they were both out of their clothes, the girl started having sex with him. While she was lying on the bed, he went over to the light fixture and switched it to a brighter setting. When he did, I saw that it was that asshole Jason. I remember thinking how unfair it was that this asshole was getting a good woman. The light also allowed me to see the back of the girl's head. She had long, dark hair. I couldn't tell if they were black or brunette. While I was pondering this, the girl started screaming. It was at that moment that I realized Jason was having sex with Flo. I couldn't believe that out of all the people she chose him. The person I disliked the most was the guy she chose to have sex with. I felt both angry and horny at the same time, so I just kept watching. At this point, I couldn't take it anymore, so I slipped out from behind the screen door, walked over and stood next to the bed. I watched as Jason enjoyed my wife and pawed at her breasts. As I stood there, Flo opened her eyes and looked at me. I realized she didn't recognize me, but it didn't seem to bother her that I was here either. When Jason noticed me, he just said, "Hey, babe, you'll have to wait your turn to get some of my body." That's where I got my biggest surprise of the evening. While Jason was whispering sex words to Flo at full volume, the bedroom door opened and Gary Carlson walked in. Gary shouted, "What is going on in here? What are you doing? This is my house, and you're treating it like a cheap motel room." As Gary continued his tirade, Flo crawled off the bed and began to dress quickly, and Jason froze with fear. He couldn't move if his life depended on it. As Gary's momentary burst of anger began to subside, he recognized Jason and began to get angry again, now at Jason. As Gary continued, I took Flo's hand and led her out of the room and down the stairs. Taking her outside, I asked where her car was and led her to it. I got in the car next to her and asked if she was okay. I figured she would be very shaken up after such a scene. When I looked at her, she was laughing. Then she looked at me and asked, "Do you know me?" I replied, "No, should I?" She replied, "I don't know. I don't think I know you, so I wasn't sure if you knew me or not. Anyway, I want to thank you for getting me out of there before anyone in the house knew who I was. What can I do to show my appreciation?" I replied, "Well, there is one thing you can do for me." With those words, I pulled my body off the seat, pulled down my pants and shorts, and said in my voice, "You can do to me what you did to Jason?" Flo looked at me in shock. I could tell she was still confused. She really believed I was a woman, and here she recognized a familiar male voice. Eventually, I had to take the wig off. Then Flo said, "Oh my God, it's you! I would never have guessed. And it's the same wig I bought. I should have recognized it right away." Then she laughed, bent over, and took over. After that, I suggested we head home to make real love. I took the car, and we both drove home. When we got home, I started kissing Flo and taking off her clothes. When I started to take off her panties, she said, "Wait, I have to take a shower and get cleaned up for you." I asked one question first. "Why did you choose Jason if you know how much I dislike him?" I thought using Jason would serve our purpose. First, I wanted to pick someone you wouldn't immediately suspect, making it easier for me to succeed. Second, Jason has only met me once, so I knew he wouldn't recognize me in a black wig. And third, I wanted you to benefit from it too. Do you think Jason will still be working on Monday? At that moment, I was more sure of Flo's love for me than ever before, and I loved her more than ever. I plopped her on the bed, pulled off her clothes, and we made love. The next morning, June called Flo and asked, "Where were you last night? You missed the wildest Halloween party ever. Jason Enright brought some cheater with him to the party, and Gary caught them having sex in one of his bedrooms. Gary fired Jason on the spot. It was great. I guess no one was upset to see Jason go. Well, I have to go. I'll talk to you later." Flo and I just laughed and went back to bed. Flo and I still give each other gift cards every Christmas. Maybe I'll write some more and tell you about the crazy gift card Flo gave me last year. The end. Subscribe to my channel. Thank you.